Hi, Dayle here, and welcome back to Evolve with me. If you're new here, hello and welcome. This is our little corner of the world where we have real conversations about growth, the messy, beautiful journey of becoming who we're meant to be, and yes, sometimes we dive into the spiritual side of life too. And if you've been here before, genuinely thank you. Thank you so much for returning. And never take it for granted that you choose to spend part of your day here with me. Now, I have a question for you. Have things been feeling a little full lately? And I don't just mean your calendar or your closet, though maybe those too. I'm talking about that feeling where everything just seems cluttered. Your mind feels busy. Your space isn't quite right. There are things you know you need to address, but you keep pushing them to tomorrow. If you're nodding right now, this episode is absolutely for you. Because today, we're going to gently, and I mean gently, start clearing some of that clutter. And I'm not just talking about the physical stuff, but the mental, emotional, and energetic clutter that's been weighing you down. But before we dive into anything practical, I want us to just pause for a moment and feel into the energy around us right now. So, we've just experienced that beautiful moment of balance where day and night are equal, the spring equinox. And with that comes this natural shift, a movement out of winter's reflective, slower energy into something that feels more alive, more open. It's it's a time for renewal, for rebirth. That moment where what's been quietly growing beneath the surface finally starts to move. We've also stepped into Aries season. Yay! And fellow evolver, Aries energy does not wait around. It's bold, it's fiery, and it wants to move and begin and do. So there's this natural pull to start fresh, to take action on all those things that have been sitting in the background. And recently, we had that powerful full moon in Libra, shining a light on our relationships. For example, how we show up, where things feel balanced, and where we might need more honesty, care, or even release. Here's what I know to be true. The most important relationship we'll ever have is the one we have with ourselves. And when we take time to clear what's been weighing us down, to release what's no longer aligned, we create something precious. Space. Space to grow, to breathe, space to step into what's been waiting for us. And that's why this feels like such a powerful time to spring clean our lives. Now, I want to be clear from the start. We don't need to wait for some specific cosmic moment to hit the reset button. We can choose to do this anytime, whenever the urge strikes us. But for me, I've been feeling so called to talk about this now. With the changing of the seasons, the shifting energy all around us, it's been nudging me to lean in and really embrace the energies of the spring equinox and the Aries energy. And if you're feeling that same pull, take it as your sign. However, on the other hand, if you're not quite there yet, that's completely fine too. This is something you can come back to whenever you need it. So, I tend to be a visual person, so I like to think of my life a bit like a home, with different rooms representing the various areas I'm currently navigating. And just like spring cleaning a house, it's usually more manageable to tackle one space at a time, as each room has its own purpose, its own energy, its own things that need a little attention from myself. Whether that's our environment, mindset, habits, spiritual practices, we're carrying different baggage in different areas of our lives every single day. And when everything starts to feel overwhelming, breaking it down into these distinct rooms that I'm going to be talking about can make the process feel a lot more doable. So, are you ready to dive in with me? Let's start by exploring the first room. Room 1, your environment. When most people think spring cleaning, this is where they start, the physical space. And honestly, that makes complete sense. Because our environment isn't just where we live, it's something we feel. Here's something that hit me hard when I first thought about it. Clutter isn't just stuff, it's delayed decisions. I used to be the self proclaimed queen of letting things pile up. Papers on the counter, for example, or clothes on the chair, or in my case on the floor. Random bits everywhere. And every single time I looked at it, I'd think, I'd really need to sort this out, Dayle. But instead of doing it, I'd avoid it because it felt so overwhelming. But here's what I learned. When our environment feels cluttered, it can create this background noise in our minds, can't it? This quiet, constant pressure that we might not even notice until it's gone. But when you clear even a small part of it, we feel it almost instantly. We feel lighter, clearer, and more in control. So, let's do this together. Let's take a look around right now. Is there one space that feels heavy? For example, it could be a desk. It could be a corner of a bedroom. Or maybe it's your car or your purse or wallet. Whatever came to mind first, let that be your starting point. Room 2, your mindset. Now we move inward, because the clutter in our minds, that's what really shapes our experiences of life. The thoughts that repeat on loop, the beliefs we carry around like heavy backpacks, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we're capable of. And here's something worth sitting with. Some of the thoughts we think aren't even ours. They're echoes of who we had to be to feel accepted, to feel safe, and to fit in. We carry around these inner critics, these fears of failure, these beliefs that whisper, "You're not ready yet," or "Who do you think you are, Dayle?" And when we don't question these thoughts, they quietly run the show, don't they? But by spring cleaning our mindset, it's not about forcing positivity or even pretending everything's fine. It's about awareness, noticing what's there, and instead of getting critical, how about getting curious? So, when you catch yourself in one of those thought spirals, try asking, is this thought helping me? Is it even true? And if it's not mine, whose voice am I hearing? Sometimes just asking the question is enough to shift something. Room 3, your habits. Let's talk about habits because honestly, our habits shape our life way more than our intentions ever will. Those small repeated actions, they add up, don't they? They compound and then they become who we are. Now, here's something most people don't realise about habits. Some habits aren't just habits, they're avoidance dressed up as comfort. Doom scrolling instead of starting that project, saying I'll do it tomorrow instead of making the decision today, or staying in our comfort zone when our higher self is crawling out for us to grow. And listen, this is so human. We've all been there. I've definitely been there. But when we look at our habits with curiosity instead of criticism, they start to make sense. And when they make sense, they can begin to change. So, what's one habit you know isn't serving you right now? Maybe it's how you start your morning, or what you do when you're stressed, or how you spend your evenings. Just notice it. There's no judgment, but it brings awareness, and that's where change always starts. Room 4, your spiritual practices. Now, spiritual means different things to different people, and that's beautiful. But spirituality, at its core, is about connection. Connection to ourselves, to something bigger than ourselves, to that inner compass that always knows the way, even when our mind feels foggy. Now, in my opinion, the spiritual room is often the one we neglect the most. It's so easy to get caught up in the day to day hustle and forget to nourish that deeper part of ourselves. But the truth is, our spiritual well being is foundational. It's what gives us the clarity, the resilience, the sense of purpose to tackle everything else in life. So, I pose the question to you: what does your spiritual practice look like right now? Maybe it's like mine, including a daily meditation, or journaling, or connecting with nature. I mean, spring is upon us, and there are so many beautiful flowers popping up from the ground. It's like the perfect time to connect with nature. The key is finding what resonates for you, and have fun figuring that out. What makes you feel grounded, inspired, alive? It doesn't have to be complicated or time consuming. I remember when I first started working with Oracle decks, I I became slightly obsessed with them, and every single day I felt that I needed to pull a card from each one for some divine message or for some guidance, when really I just needed to do what I felt called to do, follow my intuition and follow my inner compass. And now my daily practice has evolved, but again, it's something that doesn't need to be overwhelming or time consuming. Sometimes the simplest rituals can have the biggest impact. Maybe it's taking a few deep breaths before starting your day, or setting an intention each morning, or ending your day with a moment of gratitude. Small acts that remind you of what truly matters can have the most profound effects. And the important thing is just to approach this with self compassion, not to judge yourself for what you haven't been doing, and focus on what you can start doing, one small step at a time. Because when we tend to that spiritual room, everything else starts to fall into place. Or so I found, anyways. We find more clarity, more purpose, and more resilience to handle whatever life throws our way. So, what's one small spiritual practice you'd like to try or revive in the days ahead? Room 5, your relationships. Now, I debated whether or not to include this room within this podcast episode, but the more I thought about it, our relationships with the people we surround ourselves with, well, they have a profound effect and impact on our energy, our mindset, and overall our well being. They can either lift us up or weigh us down. Think about the key relationships in your life right now. Which ones leave you feeling energized and inspired? And which ones tend to drain you or bring you down? Now, it's not about cutting people out entirely. That's rarely the answer. But it is about being intentional about where you invest your time and emotional energy. Maybe there's a friendship that's grown stale, or a family dynamic that feels heavy, or perhaps there's someone in your life who consistently makes you feel less than. Those are the connections that may need some spring cleaning. Now, the goal isn't perfection. Again, it's simply awareness. Noticing where you're giving more than you're receiving, for example. Where you're making excuses or avoiding difficult conversations. Again, I've been there. And then taking small steps to set healthier boundaries. Because at the end of the day, the most important relationship you have is the one with yourself. When you prioritize your own needs and values, you're able to show up more fully for the people you care about. And it's not selfish, it's self care. And it's the foundation for everything else. So, there's just one more important room I'd like us to explore together. It's the room of your purpose, room 6, your why. That deeper calling that animates your life and gives you a sense of meaning and fulfillment and gets you all excited. You see, when we get caught up in the day to day grind, it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture. We can start to feel like we're just going through the motions, checking boxes, surviving rather than thriving and evolving. But I believe each one of us, has a unique purpose, a gift, a passion, a way of being in the world that lights us up from the inside. It might be something we're actively pursuing, or it might be something we've tucked away, afraid to fully claim. So, I invite you to get still for a moment and ask yourself, what is it that makes my heart sing? What kind of impact do I long to have, even in a small way? And what legacy do I want to leave behind? Now, these questions aren't always easy to answer. In fact, it can feel downright daunting. But the exploration is so important because when we reconnect with our sense of purpose, it gives us the motivation, the resilience, and the courage to make the changes we know we need to make. It becomes the North Star that guides us even through the darkest times. I encourage you to make space for this final room and spend some time there getting curious about your deeper why. And remember, purpose doesn't have to be grand or big. It can be as simple as showing up fully for the people you love, or using your unique gifts to make the world a bit brighter. The key is honouring that inner voice, that intuitive knowing of who you're meant to be. It's the most powerful spring cleaning of all. Now that we've covered the key areas, your environment, your mindset, your habits, your spiritual practices, your relationships, and your sense of purpose, I want to take a moment to reflect on the bigger picture. Because the truth is, real lasting change doesn't happen overnight. It's a process of awareness, self compassion, and small, consistent steps. Remember, you don't have to fix everything at once. In fact, that kind of pressure and perfectionism will only hold you back. Instead, focus on one room at a time, one habit at a time, or one relationship. And along the way, be gentle with yourself. Notice when your inner critic starts to creep in and gently redirect your attention to what's working, what's going well. Because celebration is just as important as the work itself. When you acknowledge your progress, no matter how small, you're reinforcing that you're on the right track. You're building momentum and cultivating self trust. And, my fellow evolver, you have the power to transform your life one room at a time. You have the wisdom, resilience, and the innate goodness to create the change you seek. All you have to do is keep showing up. Keep taking those small steps. Keep reconnecting with what matters most. And I'll be there, cheering you on every step of the way. Before I finish this episode, I invite you to sit with Dayle's daily prompts. And if you feel called to, you can journal your responses or even share them in the comments. Prompt 1 relates to your environment. What is one space in your life that feels heavy right now? And what would it feel like if it felt light instead? Prompt 2 relates to your mindset. What is one belief you've been carrying that no longer feels true for who you're becoming? Prompt 3. This relates to your habits. What is one habit you know isn't serving you? And what might it be protecting you from? Prompt 4. This relates to your spiritual practices. What is one small ritual that helps you feel like yourself? And how can you bring more of that into your days? Prompt 5 relates to your relationships. What's one small shift you'd like to make in your relationships starting today? And lastly, prompt 6 relates to your purpose. What's one small step you can take today to reconnect with your sense of purpose? Okay, so now we're at the end of the episode, and I just want to take this time to thank you so much for spending your time with me here today. I'll catch you in the next one, but until then, take care, keep evolving. Toodaloo!